Hey everybody, welcome to this week's live chat. Do you want to hear the funniest story? Oh, I log on about 30 minutes beforehand and I chat and type and everything, and I couldn't understand why my sound kept going on, and I realized I had set the space bar as a hotkey for my mic. So every time I was hitting space, it was turning it on and off and on and off. So sorry guys, so those of you that were paying attention, yeah, hopefully I didn't say anything too bad. But you know, I'm just trying to figure it all out. Also, thanks so much for being patient with me as I rescheduled this live chat. If this is the first time you're visiting a live chat or watching on the replay, I get on here every Thursday at 3 p.m. Central to talk quilting and share tips and tricks, plus I answer your questions live. Except for last Thursday, I took a last-minute vacation with my girls. We went to the Mall of America and spent way too much money. And I thought, well, I could go live from the mall, but not any quilt shops there. So anyway, thanks so much for your patience. Totally appreciate it. Hopefully it was worth the wait. So we're going to talk about quilt as you go technique. I'm going to talk a little bit about two different styles, and I'm going to share with you how I like to do this technique. But just know there's plenty of different ways to do it. I'm just sharing what I like. So I am the expert of my opinion, so it all kind of works out that way. I do want to tell you that I put together a PDF, downloadable PDF of today's presentation with the pictures and things I'll be showing. So if you want to get that for free, check the description box below and there's a link on there, and you can download that if you want to refer to the pictures or any of that later on. First, real quick, before we get to that, I'm going to talk about today's promo. So every week I have a deal or a special thing. I got to show you this new lanyard we just got here at the shop. So it's pretty teal, quilting is my therapy. Well, today's promotion is if you purchase a table toppers kit or Saturday stroll kit, you get a lanyard for free using the promo code lanyard, and all the information about that is in the description box, so you can click that. What are these quilt kits, you ask? Well, I will show you here in just a second, but that's today's promo. It's only good for the week, so it will expire by the next live chat, so definitely take advantage of that if you want to. All right, so quilt as you go. Really, when you hear those two, or hear that phrase, it's a technique, but it could be referring to one of two things. It could be this idea that you're stitching and quilting at the same time. So you're creating your quilt as you go. Perfect example would be the table toppers quilt, or table toppers table runner that I made during an episode of the Midnight Quilter. And so how this is made, I'm going to show you in a second, but basically I'm piecing and I'm quilting at the same time, so quilt as I go. But for larger quilts, the quilt as you go technique is where you take your quilt top and you break it into chunks, quilt them while they're smaller and more manageable, and then put them all together. So in that instance, we've already made our quilt top, we're just quilting it as we go along instead of trying to wrestle the whole thing in your machine. I'm going to talk a little bit about quilting on a sewing machine and a long arm, and I've got some pictures to share. But if you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments or in the chat. I've got Wendy here today and she's writing them down for me so I can answer those if I know the answer. So let me switch on over to our pictures. Let's talk about the first quilt as you go, where we're piecing and quilting at the same time. In this instance, we're going to start with our backing and our batting, and we're going to lay them out, and then we're going to take pieces and stitch them directly on top of that. So in this instance, this is from the table toppers pattern. I have a pieced strip. I went ahead and added a little detail, but then what I'm going to do is place one strip down and then put the second strip directly on top of it, but right sides down, or yeah, right sides together. So here you can see I've got my two strips right side together on top of the batting, on top of the backing, and I'm stitching right along it. A helpful tip for this will be to use your walking foot. You're going to be dealing with a lot of bulk here, and try to keep that line as straight as you can. Now, this is in the Table Toppers Midnight Quilter episode, so you can actually see how this comes together in that video. It's on my YouTube channel, but this is going to kind of just break it down step by step. Then once I've stitched it down, it's all through all those layers, I'm going to fold it into place and then press it nice and flat. So again, I'm not making my quilt top and then quilting it, I'm quilting as I go. And so once I have that next piece, then I can take the next one and place it right sides together, stitch along that, and flip over. So this is great for smaller projects that you need done quickly. Maybe you don't want to spend a lot of time on the machine quilting. although you can definitely come back and add more quilting if you'd like. And it's just a fun technique to kind of make it as you go. So table runners, hot pads, I think I heard somebody talk about, smaller quilts. This is a good option. But you can also do this on your long arm. So one of the questions that came up a lot in the live chat was about, is this technique just for sewing machines? Well, in general, the second one maybe, but you can do this stitch and flip quilt as you go technique on your long arm as well. So what you would do is you would load your backing and your batting as normal. So however you load your backing, put your batting on, and then you're going to do the same thing, laying your strips on there, putting them right sides together and stitching along. And so this is actually from a long arm clinic I held a couple years ago, and we had 12 long arms in here, and we had a charity day where we made a bunch of strip quilts to give to charity. And so here I'm putting on the next strip, right sides together. I've just folded it back so you can see that right sides are together. And then I'm going to stitch along that edge with about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Of course, you could do more or less, or you could do more, I wouldn't advise less, stitching along that edge. If any of you have ever tried quilting a straight line on a long arm, you know it might not be super easy. If you have channel locks, that will really help you. If your long arm doesn't come with channel locks, you can actually buy channel locks. They're just little rings, and they have a little grippy on there, and it can block one of your wheels, the ones that move vertically, so that your machine will only roll horizontally. So that is a handy little option for you, getting some of those little rings. Or you can use a ruler. I don't like using a ruler for this because I want to kind of use my hand to hold that fabric in place, but that's up to you. You can decide how you feel about that. Then I'm going to fold the fabric into place, and you can actually press it when it's still on the long arm. I know that seems a little weird, but if it's kind of bulking up a little bit, you can grab your little iron, which we'll see here in a second. You can kind of iron it right there on the quilt. So it's just a different option. So this is the finished quilt, and what's fun about it is it's really quick. And then if you want, you can add more quilting to it. Just because you've stitched it in place, you can come back and add more designs. And what's fun about this particular design or this idea is that if you're, let's say, practicing sashing designs or whatever designs you want, you can quilt a different design in each strip. You can also change up the size of your strips. You can make some narrower and some wider. Great option for charity quilts or for a last-minute baby quilt that you need to make pretty quick. You can get more intricate with this technique. We're not even going to touch base on that right now because I'll just open up a whole can of worms. But you can do other shapes, and you can create, circles and other shapes that you want. You just have to have an applique piece to cover up any raw edges that are left over. So just keep that in mind. Totally up to you. All right, now let's talk about the second option, where we're taking those bigger quilts and we're breaking them up into smaller pieces, and we're going to quilt as you go. Now, I have a video tutorial where I show you how to do this. There's a link in the description box below that will take you to the page on my website that has all this information. But I'll just took some quick pictures and I'll break it down for you a little bit. But if you want to see it kind of in video form, you can definitely check out that video tutorial. So let's say you are getting ready to quilt as you go. You got your quilt top, or you're making your quilt top. The first step is you're going to break your quilt up into sections. And those sections can be whatever you like. It really depends on your preferences, how big your machine is, how big of a section you feel comfortable quilting. I will say that the fewer sections mean fewer joining, but if you feel more comfortable with smaller pieces, you can definitely do that. So I have a couple of examples to talk about how you could break it up. So sneak peek, this is actually from an upcoming episode of the Midnight Quilter. It's called Woodland Drive, and it's featuring National Parks panels. It's not available yet. It's coming very, very soon. So those of you that keep asking about Midnight Quilter, it's coming soon. But it's a perfect example of how some quilts are better suited for the quilt as you go technique. So first, let's look at the quilt. Looking at the pattern will give you a great indication of how you should break this up. It might not be noticeable on the actual quilt, but on the pattern, it's actually pieced in strips, in strip sections. If I felt comfortable quilting those bigger sections, I can break it up that way. However, I could break it up into smaller pieces if I want. So here's a different example where I have it kind of separated a little bit more. I could look at the sections that pattern comes in, quilt those sections, and then join them up. In general, not that I've done this technique an extensive amount of time, because for my bigger quilts, I'll use my long arm, but in general, when I have done it, I like to do long strips. Even if my throat space is small, I can still move this way, and so I can at least have less joining. So you can break it up however you want. Now, let's look at another quilt. Sometimes quilts aren't necessarily suited for it. So let's look at this quilt. This is Saturday Stroll. This is the quilt pattern that was featured at the quilt walk that we had, our event at the shop a couple weeks ago. And fun fact, the pattern is available for sale, and also the kit. So if you buy this kit, this is one of the kits you can buy to get the free lanyard if you want. But this quilt kind of works for the Quilt As You Go, but let's look at it kind of broken out. So it's pieced in strips, no problem, but look at all those borders. I wasn't really thinking about the Quilt As You Go technique when I designed this, and so that means each of those borders would have to be kind of separately done and added. Yes, there's ways to do it quickly, there's different ways to do it, but I might try to adjust the pattern a little bit if I felt comfortable to make it a little easier. Maybe I take out the pieced border, maybe I just have a solid piece of fabric. Again, you're gonna decide how to break it up, you're gonna make it fit your preferences, but try to make them as big as you can to make the next steps easier. Okay, once you've decided how you're gonna go about it, you're gonna cut your backing and batting pieces. Now, here's the thing about this. If I have my section, I'm gonna cut my batting to the finished size of the section. So if I had a 20.5-inch square, it's gonna finish at 20 by 20, so that is the size I'm gonna cut the batting. Again, in the video tutorial, in the link in the description box, it will show you this kind of in a video form, but the backing, I actually cut way bigger. I like extra backing so that I have something to grab onto when I'm quilting up close to the edge. I just like to have a little bit more wiggle room. However, if you're short on fabric or you don't want to waste it, you can make it the same size as your actual block. So your batting is going to be a little bit smaller, and your backing is going to be at least the size it is or bigger, because we can trim it down later. All right, then you're going to baste your layers. Standard stuff here, same thing. It doesn't matter what method you use. A lot of people have different methods. I like to use fusible batting, but you could use fusible spray, you could use pins, you can use any of that. But you're gonna baste your layers, and then you're gonna quilt, 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 quilt. That's my favorite part, so I'm usually looking forward to that. Here's the trick though, you're gonna leave about 1/2 of an inch unquilted around the edges. At least 1/4 of an inch, but up to 1/2 of an inch. The reason is I'm gonna need that little extra fabric to join them together. So one thing that I do to make it a little easier is I have some Friction pins, and what I'll do is I'll actually mark that line. I can get pretty carried away with the machine quilting, and I don't wanna run off the edge. I wanna make sure I leave that gap. In the video, I talk about if you have too much of a gap, unquilted area, you can come back in and add some more quilting if you'd like. So totally up to you. But then you're gonna quilt whatever your heart desires. You're gonna quilt the best designs. Maybe you took a free motion challenge quilting along, maybe you saw a tutorial and you wanna try some new stuff. All right, then you're gonna trim your backing fabric. So your quilt block is all done, your quilt section is all done, and you're gonna trim your backing fabric to the size of your block. Not the finished size, the actual size it is right now. Okay, this is on the assumption that you made your backing bigger, and so that you'd want to add that in there. If you made it the same size, you don't have to worry about that. And then it's time to join the blocks. Now I have some pictures to talk you through this. Again, you can check out the video tutorial, and this will help you out. I will say there's a lot of different ways that you can join your sections. So if you've ever done a tutorial or like searched it out, some people like to use bias or like binding to join it. Some people like to put applique over it. This is just a really basic way. This is how I like to do it. So I have my quilted piece. This is why it's important to leave that area kind of unquilted. What I'm gonna do is first, I'm gonna pin the backing out of the way. So what you're looking at here is the back, and I'm pulling that little backing fabric out of the way, and I'm gonna pin it so that it doesn't get caught in my seam. So here you can see all that backing is now pinned away. Then I'm gonna take my other piece, because I have two, right, that I need to join. I'm gonna put them right sides together, and I'm gonna line up the edge of the block. So it's hard to see, but where that brown is right underneath it, that is the block, the front of it. I'm gonna line them up, and I'm gonna sew those pieces together using a 1/4 inch seam. So basically this is the piecing I would have done in a normal quilt assembly. So the trick is here, I've got pins everywhere, I've got pieces everywhere. So what I like to do, one thing I find really helpful is to use clips. Now, I love Wonder Clips, I use them a lot, but especially for this. So using those clips kind of help keep it from shifting, they don't get in the way, and I can just move them out. It's kind of funny because I do have all my sewing supplies over here, but the clips come in different colors, and there's smaller packs or larger packs, you can check it out. But if I'm gonna be crawling around on the floor, or I'm gonna be, doing a bigger piece, I'm not against wearing a little wrist cushion because it's just gonna help keep them where I can grab them nice and easily. So those are very helpful. If you're gonna do this a lot, you might wanna check out those clips. However, pins will work as well. I just have enough pins going on. I don't wanna get, poked when I'm doing it. And then I'm gonna carefully, oh so carefully, piece those together. It's okay if the needle catches a little bit of the batting, I'm fine with that, but I don't wanna get the backing fabric caught in that seam. That's gonna make the next step a little difficult. So this is a question that came up in the chat beforehand. Mindy Taylor asked, how about the joining? Won't it be weird if there's no batting in between the strips? Now that we're piecing it, that seam allowance is taking up that extra fabric, and in theory, your batting should join up nicely. So you shouldn't have any problem with that. The reason that we don't make the batting the same size is we'll have a very, very bulky seam. We'll have double batting right there. So keeping that batting the finished size of your block is kind of important. Of course, if you're not sure, you can always trim it away as you go. So if I'm like, ooh, this batting is too big right here, I can just use my snips and trim it away. But I'm gonna try to sew just between the two pieces of fabric of the block. Sew it together like that. And then when I'm done, I have something that looks like this. So I'm gonna show you, I have that actual sample here. I still haven't finished it. But if you can tell in the center where those joining is, there's a little bit of an unquilted area. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. However, I love to quilt things to death, quilt it to death and then add some more. So I would probably go back and add some more quilting. Of course, you don't have to. It's gonna be fine, just a total personal preference. So remember, with both techniques, you can always add more quilting after you're done. All right, so now we have the back side to take care of. So we could just leave it like this. It's gonna be a little bit awkward, kind of difficult to explain to our loved one why it's like that. We can call it a raw-edged backing quilt. But we need to join it together and make it look nice and polished. So again, in the video, I show you how to do it. I'm gonna demonstrate it here in a second, but I'm gonna talk you through the steps first. So first, I'm gonna press everything to one side. So I have my two flaps up here, my fabric. I'm gonna press them to one side. It doesn't matter, pick which one you wanna do. It really doesn't. I also love to use a spray or a starch to help it kind of lay in place, because I'm gonna be, kind of manipulating this fabric. And then I'm gonna take one and I'm gonna fold it over. I'm gonna show you how to do that here in a second. I'm gonna fold that fabric on itself and then fold it in place. And that's gonna give it that finished edge. And then that's gonna kind of make it look nice and sealed. Now, how about this? If you look at the two blocks, the two backings, one is going one direction and one is going the other direction. That's the problem with directional fabric, right? I could tell you that I did that so you could easily see which block is which, but I wasn't paying attention, and honestly, that doesn't bother me. So if that bothers you, take that into account before you start joining your blocks together. And then once I have that, let me come back over here. Once I have that in place, I can pin it and then I can hand sew it together. You could also use stitch it down. You can stitch through the layers, use your walking foot. You'll just have an extra line of quilting on the front. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And then that's gonna finish it up. And you're gonna keep joining your sections until the quilt is done. So as you can see, it's a little bit more labor intensive to join those blocks, but if it makes it more comfortable for you to quilt, then it's worth it. So you just kind of have to decide how you wanna manage that. So now I just wanna show you real quick how to join those, the backing bit, just kind of a little bit video, but again, remember, you can check out that tutorial and I'll show you how to do it. So let me zoom in on my block. See, yep, this is the one I used in the video and it's still not finished, but what are you gonna do? One of these days I'll get it done. All right, so I like, again, to use my iron, and I have my wool mat that just kind of helps reflect that heat back up. And here are my two pieces. So I have my two pieces, and there's my seam, and I'm gonna press everything to one side. Again, it doesn't matter which side. I'm just gonna press it over, and then to really help it stay in place, I'm gonna lightly mist it. And so that starch or that water, whatever you have in there, is gonna help kind of hold it in place. All right, so now I have this fabric is pressed over, great. This one is gonna fold over on top of it to kind of finish off that seam, but I'm gonna fold it first and then fold it again. And then what that's gonna do is just give it a nice polished, a nice finished edge. Of course, I mean, I guess you don't have to do that, it's up to you, but it also give you something to sew through. So very carefully folding it and then folding it and then pressing it. Then I'm gonna pin it in place and then of course hand stitch it. And I think in the video I talk about how I would do this during a movie. I still haven't done it, but I will eventually. And then when I'm done, I'll have my two pieces joined together into my bigger section. So as you can see, it really kind of makes it easier to manage those bigger pieces. And remember, with the Quilt As You Go technique or any quilting technique in general, it's up to you. So you're gonna find the preferences that you like, you're gonna find the way to do it that appeals to you. The main thing is that you finish the quilt, right? That's the most important thing. Okay, so let's talk about some questions. I did write a few down, and I think Wendy has been over there scribbling furiously with some questions, so she's got them for me. Thank you, ma'am. So Mary asked, is this a technique that's only for sit-down machines? Well, the Quilt As You Go technique can be done on a long arm as well. So that first one where we're stitching and flipping, you already saw that. But let's say you have a quilt that's bigger than your long arm frame. Maybe you have the Simply 16 with a 5-foot hoop, or maybe you have an 8-foot frame but a bigger quilt. You can do this on your long arm as well. Everything's gonna be the same. You're still going to leave that extra unquilted and you're still gonna join it the same way. So you can definitely use it on both. The channel locks will be very helpful for that. All right, Samaya asked, can you do curved quilt as you go on a long arm? That was such a good question. I was like, I don't know. I would love to know if anybody's tried it. I haven't. I think it would be a little tricky, but gosh, I know that quilters are pretty ingenious, so I'm sure somebody can come up with something. So if you have an answer to that, leave it in the comments. I would love to read if that's the case. Okay, so the question was, would I do the same all over free motion for large blocks if I'm quilting as I go? In the video or with these blocks, I did some custom quilting. The actual designs that you use don't really matter as long as they can be contained within your section. Right, so I can't really do I could try, it'd be tricky to do a feather that goes over multiple sections because it wouldn't necessarily join up. But other than that, you can do anything. You can quilt it an all over, you can do a little bit of quilting, you can do a lot of quilting, it's totally up to you. And on a side note, this is why I like to make the backing a little bit bigger, because sometimes quilting will tend to shrink up the fabric and I would hate for that backing to get too small. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. Another question about backing, I didn't read this, but it just kind of led right into it. How do I keep the backing from bunching up? Okay, so when you're basting your quilt sandwich, this is where you're going to see the rewards of your diligence in that section of the quilting process. So the better basted your quilt sandwich, the less likely it will shift. Okay, so if you're using pins, just make sure I pin it every, so many inches. If you're using basting spray, make sure it's even and it's over the whole quilt. But if I'm using fusible batting, which I do love to use, it's only fusible on one side. So I don't know if this is exactly the question, but I'm just taking this in a different direction. Since it's fusible on one side, it means it's not going to be fused, obviously, on both. So I put the fusible side up, because I can only worry about one side of the quilt. It might as well be the quilt top. And then the static of the batting kind of helps hold that backing in place. But here is a tip for that. If you're getting a lot of tucks on the backing, or call it ruching, textured quilting, call it an art movement and be fine with it. But if you're rotating the quilt a lot, that's where you can really see that shifting. So let's pretend I'm quilting my quilt block and I'm doing swirls. Instead of turning all like this, I'm gonna keep my hands pointing in the same direction and I'm gonna move like that. Okay, if you're like, I don't understand, basically I'm not twisting the quilt, I'm moving it in the directions. It's that twisting and shifting that will make that fabric move. Again, though, you can only worry about one side of the quilt, right? Don't worry about the backing, it'll be fine. When you wash it, it'll all kind of go away. But if you're more of a perfectionist than I am, which honestly doesn't take a lot because I'm not a perfectionist at all, you can definitely pay attention to that basting process and try not rotating the quilt. Also, doing the quilt as you go technique might make it a little easier since you're not wrestling a big quilt and maybe you won't have to feel as burdened by that. So if anybody else has comments on that, definitely would love to hear that. So comments on keeping that. Okay, lots of questions about the deals, the weekly deals. That's something I kind of started as a thank you for everybody joining these live as an incentive to watch it when it's new. All the deals are on the website and we ship everywhere. So if you're international, we ship to you. And I'm gonna say, if you live in a tropical enough place, I might just bring it to you. Okay, not really, but I can dream, right? It's really hot and humid here. So all of the links to all of that is in the description box below. And for this particular one, there's one landing page that will give you the downloadable PDF, links to the video tutorials I'm talking about, and then also those products. Okay, can you use fusible hem tape instead of sewing, hand sewing? Yes, you definitely can. You can kind of applicate that in place. I haven't done it. Again, I defer to the crowd, so leave a comment if you have a strong feeling about this. Fusible hem tape will definitely hold it down. I worry that it wouldn't hold up to quilting or washing and stuff, so maybe adding some stitching, I don't know. Again, that's kind of up to you. I haven't used it, but it could definitely help hold it in place while you hand sew or in lieu of the hand sewing. So again, I don't have a ton of experience. I have way more experience with free motion quilting than I do with the quilt as you go technique. But if anybody here has a comment about that or a pointer, definitely share that, that fusible thing. Okay, recommended size. So if you're gonna break into sections, what is the recommended size? How small should you go? All right, there are no rules. So you go the size that you want. However, if you need a rule to follow, it should be 5 3/4 inches square. No, I'm totally just joking. It depends on your throat space and your preferences. It also depends on how the quilt is brought together. I would encourage you to try to go no smaller than like 20 by 20. Right? That's not too bad. It's fat quarter size, a little bit bigger. And then I would challenge you to try to go bigger and bigger each time. Ultimately, if you can get comfortable quilting your larger quilts on your sewing machine, you'll find the process, I don't know, I would find it better because I don't like the hand sewing as much. But again, everybody is different. Everybody has different preferences. So when I said that, half of y'all were like, yay, the other half were like, that's what makes teaching quilting so interesting, because everybody is different. So there is no like set size, but I would encourage you to try to go a little bit bigger than smaller. So hopefully that helps. Well, if you have any questions about any of the quilts as you go, leave them in the comments, and I get on there from time to time and answer them. And then also other quilters will definitely join in as well. And if you like this video or chat or any of my videos, I hope you'll give the video a thumbs up. That'll help other quilters find it. And I have got some fun plans in the works for upcoming live chats. So no promises. Fingers crossed, next week I'm going to try, we have to kind of work out the equipment. I'm going to try to do a live machine quilting demo where you can request designs live and I'll just quilt them. So I have to kind of rework the equipment and get some hands on deck, but wouldn't that be fun just to kind of watch it happen and then just throw stuff at me and then see if I can do it? So that's going to hopefully be it, and then also I'll be adding more topics as we go. So if you have any suggestions for topic ideas, leave those in the comments as well. How do you find upcoming videos? I'm so glad you asked. You're gonna go to my YouTube channel, and up there is upcoming live chats. So you can click on those and set a reminder, and it will alert you when I go live. So hopefully you like, or hopefully you feel comfortable with the idea of Quilt As You Go, and if it's a technique that you can find helpful for you, I hope you'll give it a shot. And I will see you next week for our next live chat, Thursday at 3 p.m. Central. Until then, everybody, stay safe and happy quilting.